So, Colosseum was the Pokémon series' first big home console RPG, but the developers, Genius Sonority, weren't done yet and 2 years later released Pokémon XD Gale of Darkness in 2005. So let's go through the game and see what it brings to the table and how it stacks up compared to the original. Like Colosseum before it, the game kicks off with a bang, just not a real bang like Colosseum's intro. There's no actual explosions involved this time. A ship is stolen out of the water by what's presumably a Shadow Lugia, throwing these two guys overboard and taking off. And so this is just a cargo ship, right? So I'm guessing there's not a ton of people on board, but the cutscene just ends with these two characters just in the water in the middle of nowhere and with no other option than to just drown, I think. As far as I remember, the game just always says these two were never found and it just never mentions them again. So it's a bit grim, but I really like how they just look at each other and they're like, oh man, well, this sucks. It then cuts straight to a battle, Salamence versus Metagross, two titans of Gen 3. I mean, it was cool Colosseum started you with an Espeon and Umbreon, but this is wild. Oh, it was just a simulation. The protagonist of the game, canonically named Michael, lives in this science facility, his only Pokemon being an Eevee. His mum soon asks us to look for our sister and talks about a project that's 5 years in the making. And I just want to quickly talk about this character, the little sister Jovi. So she was playing hide and seek with her friend and then just left him to go to a nearby mansion. Like, this is a horrible friend. Like, imagine you were just hanging out with a pal of yours and they just ditch you in the middle of what you were doing with no explanation. So we go to Budget Luigi's mansion to get her back and are stopped by some freaky looking little fella who assumes that we're a burglar. Yeah man, teach me a lesson with a fucking Sunkern and a Magikarp. I'm shaking in me boots right now. After the battle, he realizes that we're just here to pick up our sister and take her back home. Once the pair return though, the Professor Crane gives us the snag machine, and wouldn't you know it, right after we get it, we need to put it to use with some strangers kidnapping the Professor. Although the guy who's involved in it, Spy Naps, the guy in yellow who we actually battle, kidnaps the Professor. Like, naps. Kidnaps. Did they just name him after, like, his profession? Do they get paid for this? Or is this a very creepy hobby if this is just a hobby? Like, bruh. Even though we caught a Shadow Teddiursa, it's not enough and the strangers make off with the Professor. Everyone in the facility are dejected, but with the girl boss encouragement of Lily, the protagonist and Jovi's mom, everyone endeavours to pull together and finish the project mentioned before. She asks us to go to the nearby Gaten port to pick up some machine parts, and Jovi insists on tagging along. Gaten is a nice, vibrant seaside town, and surprise, surprise, our sister immediately gets us into trouble by running into some thug who are defo has a bad case of the old roid rage. Like, a child bumped into you and apologized right after, mate. Simmer down. Lucky for us, a very nice and totally not suspicious old man and his guards quickly put him down to size. The old man is named Varich because he's very rich. This game is all about subtlety. Also, just an aside, the guy who basically serves as the bouncer for the Krabby Club, look at his name. It's him, it's Mr. Burke! Anyway, main story time. In the parts shop, we get the equipment that we need, as well as the chance to evolve Eevee into any of its evolutions. Since I had a Vaporeon and Jolteon in my Gen 1 videos and Fire Red and Leaf Green video, and you get Espeon and Umbreon as starters in Colosseum, I thought I'll give Flareon a shot this time. When we get back, the player is given a bunch of Crane memos, this game's version of the Iron Files, explaining the mechanics of Shadow Pokemon, and to be honest, I prefer how these were baked into the world in Colosseum. I'm in two ways about this game in general. On one hand, I really like that some parts have been updated since it has been 5 years canonically since the events of the previous game, and this starting area especially feels very homely and lived in, but I'm not a fan of the protagonist at all. Like, I know they're both silent protagonists, but come on, he looks like such a weenie compared to Wes. That aside, we need to go to a familiar area, a Gate Village, to get more insight on Shadow Pokemon purification. Rui's grandparents give us the lowdown and advise us to visit Vander at Mount Battle. The Red God of Varich is here, and he has a little monologue about power and reasons for becoming strong, which is kind of interesting, admittedly. Banda meets us after a few bounds on Mount Battle and informs us of a shady laboratory nearby. It's the old Cypher base, with the vehicle Crane was kidnapped in outside, meaning he must be in here. And out comes these six brothers. They're like reoccurring minor villain characters that always get their numbers wrong, and I just never found them funny. Like every time they show up and they get their little cutscene, I just want them to just shut up and get on with it. They get real tedious. Seeing as we're in the Shadow Pokemon Lab now, I don't see any better time to talk about some moves they introduced to them in this game. So in Colosseum, Shadow Pokemon only knew the move Shadow Rush, a move which is always super effective against any non-Shadow Pokemon, and induce some recoil. This was the only move that they would know until you opened their heart more and they would learn more moves from their old moveset. Shadow Pokemon now have way more moves to play with. Weaker and stronger variations of Shadow Rush, multi-target moves, stat decreasing moves, status inducing moves. A lot tend to start off with only Shadow Blitz in the early game, but as you get further into the game, they'll come with more intense moves. Whilst getting further in, we get a little glimpse of the chief scientist named Lavrina trying to get some info out of Crane, which doesn't work. So she leaves her brother Naps, yes the same character, to sort things out. We also get our first mention of a headmaster named Greevil. Soon enough the player sets Crane free, but not before Lavrina comes back to fight. With Crane finally freed, the player soon gets access to the project that was 5 years in the making, the Purification Chamber. There's no need for me to use it at this point in the game, but I'll get more in depth when the time comes. In the meantime, the data ROM found in the base can't be cracked here, so it's off to the ONBS studio in Pyrite to get some help. Turns out we get to see some more familiar faces, namely Murabi's grunts. Pyrite generally feels more cleaned up than in Colosseum, and so does the Ore region by extension. Like I mentioned before, it's something I'm in two ways about. It does make sense in canon that over the years Ore will want to have cleaned up to its image somewhat, but I can't help but feel it takes away some personality of the region to an extent. I don't think one style is objectively better than the other, but I have my preferences. The OMBS building is more or less the fresh, clean face of Pyrite, and oh, that theme is just so smooth. We get to watch a live broadcast getting recorded and help a little girl reunite with their mother. Soon we get taught about Pokespots, duking the Lost Pillar Man, Jesus Christ. It was built in Colosseum, but in here he's crazy. He makes a return to show them off, with Ore becoming more hospitable, wild Pokemon have started coming back to the region. You put some snacks down, and when the radar goes off, you need to make sure you get back there in time to try and catch them. I quite like this in concept, however in execution, this comes off as pretty pointless. Why is that, you may ask? There are 9 wild Pokemon available. That's right, Sandshrew, Trapinch and Gligar in the rock spot, Hoppip, Fanfy and Surskit in the Oasis spot, and Zubat, Aeron and Wooper in the cave spot. So, unless one of these 9 Pokemon are your absolute favourites, there's little to no point in this feature. Although you can trade with Duking for a couple more, namely Meditite, Shuckle and Larvitar. Don't get me wrong, I did it, but again, it's just not much of a reward in my opinion. The cave spot does house the best reward I could ever ask for though. The return of Mirror B, baby. Best character in Pokemon. Let's go. Now, he was amazing in Colosseum, but he's on another level in this game. And as a side note, when I was a kid, I wanted so badly to join his team. So when I realized his offer to join was impossible to accept, I was absolutely heartbroken. Aside from gracing us with the best battle theme in the game by far, Murabi also serves as a way to have another go at catching any Shadow Pokemon missed the first time, which I'm really glad they included. While we were busy, Cypher had broken into the OMBS building. Wow, thanks for the save, Muscle Man, you really did your job well guarding the place. Shaking my goddamn head. After clearing them out, we also get the debut of one of 2 Pokemon from the then upcoming Generation 4. First is Munchlax, the baby version of Snorlax, and as a kid I loved him because I thought he was so cute, and I still do, but in this game specifically, he's a pain in the fucking arse because he only serves to steal your Pokesnacks. That and there's no real way of having him in your party in this game, which is just kind of a kick in the face. During clearing Cypher out, we get an idea of the next destination, Phoenix City, so naturally we make our way over too. Immediately on our arrival, a lady tells us that we're the millionth visitor, gives us some battle discs to take part in some battle simulations in Railgun Tower before we're kicked out. That's not a joke, you physically get kicked out of the city in-game and forced into the travel menu. Well, if she insists, I might as well have a look around here before heading back. Turns out, Railgun Tower got turned into a legitimate business establishment now, with three main attractions, the Colosseum up top, the Battle Sim, and Battle Bingo. I'll explain the latter first. Basically, you have to defeat Pokemon within a certain amount of moves on the Bingo card. You get more Pokemon and Pokeballs to increase your movements, as well as movement points for getting a Bingo. It's really weird, but it's actually quite fun. Battle Sims are exactly how they sound, acting out a specific battle scenario. Right, we've had our fun, let's get back to Phoenix City and see what's up. Well, something certainly is. Every one of the once friendly NPCs act really standoffish towards you, and the music really sets this really unnerving, oppressive kind of atmosphere. Surely seeing the mayor will give us an idea of what's going on. He'll have been replaced from the events of Colosseum. Oh, well, this woman explains that he's out and going upstairs is not allowed. Going into a nearby guy's house who lets us rest here since there's nobody working at the Pokemon Center, that's how you know something's wrong. He also lets us have a CD he doesn't want, which features the absolute bop of a song that plays on the multiplayer battle screen. I guess its official name is Rumber of Love? I never knew it even had a proper name, that's just such a funny name to me. With the woman distracted downstairs, we can go up and see a letter on the floor. This is why it was so guarded. It turns out the mayor was trying to get out the news that members of Cypher are pretending to be town locals. Oh, and also as another side note, I love how the music is quieter since you go upstairs, and then they cut it to a more dramatic track when you're reading the letter, but it would be hilarious if Rumber of Love was playing this whole time. Now we're aware of what's going on, we can actually challenge the fake citizens. Oh, and the six brothers are all pretending to be the gym leader Justy for some reason, I don't know, man. After all that, we're finally in the Finac Pokemon Stadium. Wait, Pokemon Stadium? That's the name of that other game! This goofy-looking fella, Snattle, is holding these reporters and the citizens hostage in order to keep his public image in a good standing, so he can become governor of the region. Damn, Pokemon putting a vain politician as a prominent villain? You're getting too real now. Oh, and also when he runs, it looks like how Luigi runs, and that makes me smile. Now what else is there to do? Oh, fuck, I forgot about the Purification Chamber! Well, since I now have more Shadow Pokemon than I can fit in a party right now, which isn't a criticism by the way, I much prefer the faster Purification as opposed to the much slower one in Colosseum. I'll get into how the chamber works now. So what you want to do is put a Shadow Pokemon in the middle, and then a non-Shadow Pokemon that will be weak to its attack, then another non-Shadow Pokemon weak to the previous one, etc, etc. It's super useful to get more Pokemon purified, and the theme did not have to go this hard, but I'm so glad it did. Oh, I should probably free the people that are trapped in Finak's gym, shouldn't I? And I'm kind of regretting doing so. This new mayor is one weird gangly ass motherfucker, but at least he's not evil like the last one, I guess. With that, life here is returned to normal, emphasized by the return of the town's beautiful main theme. We also get a potential motive on why the city was targeted, because sights of grunts coming to and from somewhere in the desert began to get out. We try going into the desert and are unable to, the scooter just gets stuck in the deep sand, so for now, the player has no other option than to go back to Pyrite, as a little girl and a grandparent are in need of our help in finding their lost Pokemon. The second of the Gen 4 newcomers, Bonsley, a baby Pokemon of Sudowoodo, who was lost on the SS Libra. Before it can be found though, we need to take a trip back to Gaten Port and upgrade our shitty little scooter. Per's grandfather is away at the Spencer Mansion ordered off Wish, so we gotta get him to come back and upgrade our ride. Chobin thinks you're a thief, again, but unlike last time, this isn't the end, and in a very cool anime reference if you watch Did You Know Gaming, you know. The water fountain parts and out comes Robo Groundon. This is a really cool setup. Do you battle it? Fuck no, it's just another normal battle with Chobin, except he's slightly stronger. What a cock tease, bruh. We now get access to the crane room. There's literally nothing in here except a battle CD and your sister's diary, but now we have the hover parts, so hooray, it works! We actually do find the missing ship, the SS Libra, dropped and destroyed in the desert. The music combined with the visuals give it a surprisingly sombering feeling. As we can probably gather by now, a lot of the Pokemon on the ship were taken and turned into Shadow Pokemon, and that's just assuming that all of them survived. And although it's a cargo ship, there had to have been more people than just those two guys in the intro cutscene aboard, yet there's zero signs of anybody of the original crew. It's really creepy once you start to think about it, actually. We find more of Cypher aboard, including a new admin, Gorrigan, who's like the muscle of the admins, akin to the Keem of Colosseum. There's also a cool guy who just decided to live here, which is kind of badass in itself, and lets us heal whenever we want. In return, he asks us to look into some weird noises in the ship, caused by the Bonsly the girl and her grandfather were looking for. On our way out, we basically get jumped by some Team Snag'em grunts. Finally, they make an appearance in this game. They use gloom to put us to sleep and steal the snag machine, but luckily the man who lives in the ship took us to safety. Snag'em, however, seemed to be against Cypher unlike last time, and it's bad enough that the machine got stolen, right? But we got mugged by a fucker named Biden.
Look, Fat.
In the meantime, we're pointed to a scientist who turned on Cypher at the outskirts stand, who asks us to look after a Shadow Togepi he managed to smuggle out of the base. We also get another run-in with Mirror B, always happy to see that, and the return of Ryder Willy, that name is still amazing. From the scientist, we also get the location of Team Snag'em's base, so getting the Snag Machine back from their leader Gonzap is top priority. After clearing out the grunts, we find out that Gonzap can't actually use our Snag Machine because he's just too goddamn buff, those arms are too dummy thick! But he still won't give it up without a fight, and in an interesting twist, we actually sort of form an alliance with Snag'em in this game, since we both share a common goal in taking down Cypher, since they were pretty much shafted after the events of Colosseum by them. Now that the Snag Machine is back, I'm so happy the game gives you the chance to catch the Shadow Pokemon that Mirror B and Zook have really quick after coming across them, since not catching them was really fucking with my muscle memory badly. With all that out the way, it's time to storm Cypher's key lair, and I know I said in my Colosseum video that some of the names of characters are really fucking weird, and that is true here. This grunt's name is Ibsol, as in one letter away from the name of Absol, as in the Pokemon Absol. I don't know what it is, but humans in Pokemon having names really close to names of Pokemon is really off-putting for me in some reason, and I could not tell you why. Since we're in the key layer, I guess it's appropriate that the stakes are raised now, so for the first time, a trainer has more than one Shadow Pokemon. I feel like they should have saved this for an admin fight, or maybe for Zook, you know, the Roid Rage guy from the start of the game, rather than a generic grunt, but it's still cool. At the top of the key layer, we got to raise the voltage to halt their operations, and after a rematch with one of Gorrigan's lackeys, we finally get to take on the man himself, who is presented as someone who's pretty smart, or at least competent. He seems to be running the operation here at the key layer, but whenever he's battling, he acts like a monkey. It's really strange. With his defeat, the biggest plot twist in gaming history occurs. Mr. Varich is Greevil, the Grandmaster of Cypher. Dun dun dun. Yeah, it's kind of obvious. I find it funny that both leaders presented in these games are weirdly proportioned very old people. On our way out, the player gets a list of remaining Shadow Pokemon that are out, yet have not been caught, and the reveal of the last Shadow Pokemon that they've made, a Dragonite that was stolen. By who? Well, the description's just so vague. I don't know if we've came across a character like this. I wonder. Well, there's nothing we can do about it now, but the more important question remains. How do we get to Citadark Isle? At Gate and Port, Makan lets us use the robot Kyogre that he took of Dr. Camino's hands and finished, and it seems to be the only ship that can withstand the harsh currents. Before we try that though, Crane has something to give us, namely the Master Ball. Lucky for us, the ship ends up working, and it's time to take the fight to Cypher at their final base. The intro cutscene into City Dark Isle is great. All the grunts lined up as their boss heads up the lift. Very akin to Star Wars in the scene of Return of the Jedi with the Emperor getting out of that, the little cruiser, now I think about it. Oh, and this man at Grievel's ship is just beyond hyped about the Robo Kyogre and wants to go for a ride in it, and that's very wholesome. In the first section, we run into Lavrina, who's bragging about fine-tuning. I'm not calling it XD. I know XD is meant to stand for extra dimension, and I know it's the title of the game, but it makes me actively uncomfortable. This bitch talks like she would use XD in normal conversation though, so I bet that she named it. Also, oh, and get used to this, all the admins will show up for a rematch at some point. So, in the next section, the source of the intense water currents actually gets explained. They're not natural, all the heavy weather is being created by Cypher scientists to stop anyone getting on the island. The next session is a lava area. Egan sends us an email, but it's cut off, and I thought it might be for like an item or something, so I went back to speak to him, but it was literally just for him to cheer us on, so that's sweet in theory, but if you're not going to give me an item for coming back all the way here, fuck off. And that setup I mentioned earlier was not really selling the amount of enemies here. They truly run you through the gauntlet here. I know this will annoy some people, but I think it works really well. This is Cypher's primary home of operations, so of course it's going to be heavily guarded. The next section is a rocky area with floating platforms, then further up is a crane section, like in the Doctor's Mansion, and like, imagine you work here and you're stationed in one of the awkward in-between sections, like, you're not in the ground floor or the whirlpool area, and I imagine Grievel is the type of guy to not let you use his cool villain lift unless you're an admin. So like, you have to deal with all these weird platformy areas, like, just to do your job properly. Like, it would be a fucking nightmare by the looks of things. Probably lethal, actually. It does not look like a safe place to work. So this crane puzzle, I really like it because you aren't able to access every panel. What you need to do is go upstairs and drop down to the previously inaccessible areas for extra items, which is nice. We're at the top, and we can even get a glimpse of one of Grievel's guards further down, but before we can get to him, Snartle wants a rematch. At least now there's a quick route down to the Robo Kyogre. Time to face the blue guard known as Ardos. This is a fight that the game has actually built up to really well. We've seen how strong he is, and it's time to experience that firsthand. My only gripe with the fight is, I get he's also still a Cypher admin like the previous ones, but him and the red guy feel special. They should have a unique title or theme, I think. Although he does raise the stakes as well, as he has 3 Shadow Pokemon. Beating him clears the path to Grievel, who blocks us via a wall of glass. I am 100% convinced that most of the Pokemon we got easily could break through it and end the game now, but nah, video game glass walls just be built different, I suppose. We're going to have to take the long way around, resulting in yet another rematch with Gorrigan. Beating him gives us another way into the room we were blocked from, and you'd think with how rich this guy, like, he literally has an alter ego named The Rich. A combination of very rich. You'd think he could have installed a wall which would block it all the way, but whatever. At least we get to pick the fight with a Garden Red now, Eldez. Even though he seems reluctant to fight us, he doesn't mess about. This man is packing a whopping 4 Shadow Pokemon. Beating him gives you free roam of this big room, but there's something about it I find really interesting. I think it's the big screen with those Pokemon battling. I can just picture scientists gathering round, recording results to take their Shadow Pokemon project further. At last, we get to face off with the Pokemon the game's named after. XD. I can't. Shadow Lugia is named Shadow Lugia. I can't call him that. I just can't. It's Shadow Lugia. And hey, that's what the Master Ball's for. With the ultimate Pokemon captured, that ends the game. I lied. We now have to go against Grievel's team, so technically he has 7 Pokemon. For a long time he was the only person to have this many, but he's now been beaten only by Ghetsis in Black and White 2 and the ending boss of Pokemon Legends Arceus, if I recall correctly. His theme has a pretty intense sense of finality to it, but also a little bit of triumph there. It's really, really well done. And this prequel Yoda flippin' fella is packing a full party of Shadow Pokemon. After a long, tough battle, he's egged on by Ardos to blow up the island with everyone in it. He initially seems up for it, but Eldez talks Greevil, his father, down, despite his brother being, like, way too eager to kill everyone. It does make sense that Elders is not up for this. They establish this pretty well throughout the game. But I feel like his dad's redemption, who, may I remind you, is named Greevil, a combination of the words greed and evil. It comes completely out of nowhere. It would make more sense if, for example, Greevil and Ardos do try to blow up the island, but they're stopped by elders, something like that. Either he stops the bomb going off, or he stops them from escaping, so they can't blow up the island with themselves on it. Something like that, but whatever. With Cypher dismantled for real this time, that ends the story of Gale of Darkness. But we're not quite done with Pokemon XD Uwu Gale. See, I can't call it by its name. It's too cursed, I can't do it. Anyway, there's a little bit of post-game left to do, so let's just get into that. The post-game starts off with a battle with Egan, who, after beating him, tells us about the Aura Colosseum, and I'm not sure if this is true, but I've heard rumours that this area was going to be used to fight Wes in a cut story thread, where he turned out to be the true leader of Cypher above even Greevil, but don't quote me on that. I have no idea if this is true, but if it was, it would be rad as fuck. Even just getting to battle him here separated from the story would be really nice, but sadly him or Rui don't make any appearance in this game. It even has the region screen theme from Colosseum, which is such a blast of nostalgia for me. It's always actually been my headcanon that this is like a refurbished up version of the ruins in the title screen of Colosseum. You do get to fight every admin from the story again, but thankfully unlike in Colosseum, it's not required at all, so I'm just gonna move on. There's also a weird little side quest involving Pokemon in a gate village at one of Dr. Camino's inventions, but it's only for a lucky egg, so I couldn't really give a shit about it, to be honest. The last big thing to do was look for Mirror B, who's at the lighthouse in Gate and Port for one last battle. He's rocking his classic Ludicolo team and one Shadow Dragonite, and catching it ends the game proper. There is a slightly different cutscene if you go back to fight Greevil after purifying all Shadow Pokemon, but the only thing that changes aside from his team is the protagonist hanging up the snag machine. It's not worth going out of my way to purify all Pokemon just for a slightly different cutscene if I'm honest, so I'm not going to be doing that for this video. Whilst I think it's a definite improvement over Colosseum in terms of its gameplay, especially everything to do with Shadow Pokemon, XDOO notices your— No! Gale of Darkness did have some grit to it, not seen in most Pokemon games, but I feel like Colosseum had more personality, more bite, and handled said grit better, so despite of its sequel having better gameplay, I can't help but prefer the original, but Gale of Darkness is still a fantastic game, and I hope one day we get to return to the Ore region.